What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today we're going to talk about Stopping the Steal. It is a documentary that is currently on Max. It has audio description done by Point360. Um, and that's what I got. That's most of what I got. So uh, I'm wearing the least offensive stuff that I could possibly be wearing. I've got a purple hat on backwards. It's a New York Yankees hat. If I turned it around, um, it's black sunglasses, and my shirt has Kirby on it. So absolutely nothing that makes any sense for a political documentary. And every time I step into this water, I'm always like, people are going to find this video and they're going to troll it. And I have to be very careful about how I talk about this film, how I attack this film, how I get into this film. Um, I would say that this is a very easy to assemble documentary. And I don't think there's a lot of skill in this filmmaking. And I don't even really conceptually understand what it would be that I would praise here, because most of it relies on archival footage and getting the right people to say yes to being on camera. And the reason why this film works at all is because of the people who said yes and connecting that tissue. But this is not like a documentarian that like went out into the field and, spent a lot of time. This is a person who sat down and did some interviews and put together a movie that talks about stopping the steal of the 2020 election, but not in the way that that term is often used. It talks about stopping Trump's steal of the 2000 attempted steal of the election from the perspective of Republicans at the time that were involved in it. So that was the thing that never quite made sense, was that he kept accusing, it was always like they're stealing. Who's stealing? Like, there are Republicans involved here. I mean, they're like, the conspiracy would have to be at such a high level that involves your own party. But I've always kind of believed he's an invasive species anyway, because he wasn't really a Republican before. He just kind of needed a major party ticket, because obviously when he ran before on a Reform Party ticket, no one cared. Like, where were all of you when he ran the first time? And like, what was it, 2000 on the Reform Party ticket? It was 2000, 2004, something like that. He's run before. This is not like new. But nobody cared when he ran third party. So he was like, well, I need to get a major party. So he just took over a party, just co-opted it. And then everybody who didn't believe him, who didn't agree with him, was a rhino. And so that's what happens to a lot of the people who are being interviewed here, is that that's what they've been accused of, is just being rhinos. But they're all the people that he worked with. They're all the people that he said, well, I'm going to get the best people. I know the best people, and they're going to work for me. So these are a lot of his people. Like, Bill Barr is all over this documentary and breaking down why the election wasn't stolen. This is basically a Bill Barr documentary. I think he has the most to say, and it doesn't have a problem saying it. But we also get like Stephanie Grissom and the guy from Georgia, and there's a guy from Arizona. There's a couple people. There are a few people who got interviewed who still believe the election was stolen, and they seem to be in here. Like, they're like, there's no way that if you just look at the evidence, like, they're still spouting the same thing all these years later. Just for like context, so the person did interview like a wide range of people, but this really does break down sort of how this whole thing happened. And these people give their opinions, and Bill is quite honestly ready to say, he doesn't listen to advisors. He's told what he should say, and he likes to ignore people and go do his own thing. So he wasn't terribly surprised that Trump lost, because he could see that Trump wasn't listening to the advisors in what they were saying in the final weeks of what he needed to do to try to lock down the win. But he also acknowledges all of the things sort of afterwards, and the rhetoric, and how it breaks down like very specifically, like how this was blamed and then this was blamed, and even before the election started, like Trump was using rhetoric about how if he loses the election, it's because it was stolen. So then, of course, he's already set the stage for it. And the people who were in the White House, talking about what it was like, how they were told that if this after the election, that if any of them were caught trying to find another job, they would be fired, because then it looked like that they were giving up, that they didn't believe that they won the election. So everybody was supposed to just sort of stay there on the sinking, like the sinking ship. So I can't remember which one it was. I want to say it was Stephanie Grissom, but it might have been, I think Kayleigh McEnany's in this too. And the problem with talking head documentaries is you're not, in terms of audio description, you're not always sure who's talking. Bill Barr had the most distinct voice to me, so he was pretty easy to follow. And the guy, I just don't know his name, from Arizona. I wish I did. I wish I'd memorized his name. But the guy from who was like certifying an election. There's two people from Arizona. That's really confusing. There's also the guy that was the head of the House of Representatives that's in here. I don't know all these names of all these state officials, but I can remember Bill Barr because he was at one point the head of the DOJ. So he's easier to remember. But like, I don't live in Arizona, so no, I don't functionally understand how your government works or who these people are. But the guy from Maricopa County kind of has a very distinct voice when he talks. And they break it down, and these people they make it very clear, like they're Trump supporters. They voted for Trump. And they're disturbed, heartbroken, angered, like whatever, pick one, depending on who it is, about how this was handled and how they were targeted, and for just doing their job, for just doing what they were supposed to do and doing it correctly. And the idea that people believe that they were part of some sort of thing, and they're like, they openly talk about how great Trump was for 4 years, and like the things. So this is not a documentary full of people. Actually, this doesn't interview anybody from the other side. This film is like entirely, like 100%, I believe, Republican led. I think this film is 100. It doesn't even like, there aren't even like collegiate scholars coming in here. It's all people who are like, we're Republicans. We're all registered Republicans. We worked for the Republican Party. We're elected Republican officials. We were all part of this thing, and we all got death threats, and we all, like, people told us that they were going to rape our daughters, just like really vile shit that was happening. And that's what makes this documentary interesting. That's why I said this documentary sells itself. So like, as a film, I don't know that this filmmaker necessarily did anything other than realize what would make an interesting documentary. Oh, what if I get only Republicans to talk about that time period, post election results leading all the way up through the riot at the Capitol? What would happen if I got, like, who could I get? And so they get enough people who are interesting. There are some people that I wish had been got, who have talked about this, that I think would have been really interesting. It would have been really interesting to get like Mike Pence's view on things, especially even if he only talked about what it was like to be at the Capitol that day. If he gave no other context other than that, he could have sat down for a little interview at the end and been like, I just felt like I needed to do the right thing in that moment, I feel like there are people who have talked about it and are open about it and are proud of how they stood for freedom that day, they stood for the Constitution or whatever, but then they didn't participate in this. So kudos to people who did, because that the documentary doesn't work without them. Nobody would watch this documentary if it was a whole bunch of Democrats talking about the same thing from their perspective. But instead, it has to be all these Republican elected officials talking about the election wasn't stolen. I love Trump. I wish he had won, but unfortunately he didn't. And that's what this is. It's not a one-sided documentary. If anything, it's oddly I don't even know what it is, because in some ways, yes, it is, because it's it's picking it up from the Republican side, but at the same time, many people would consider this to be like, they'd be like, well, that's your opinion. Well, that's the other side. It's like, actually, this is your party. And that's their point, is they're like, I'm getting these death threats, and people are walking around with guns and trying to, they're like finding their house and where they live and all this stuff. It's like, it's really like a lot of disconcerting stuff that's happening. And one of the guys calls out Trump for not calling out the behavior for continuing to stoke this stuff, and that's part of the thing. That's part of why he was charged, is because it's like he knew what he was doing. You can't look at the footage that they have in this film of these riots, with the people screaming just nasty shit, and be like, well, yeah, no, we were living through a peaceful time. I don't know what you're talking about. It's just Antifa. Like, it's not Antifa, man. Like, one of the interesting things is always like how it's amazing how they use the rhetoric where I've used rhetoric way too many times. I need to try to find a new word, where the other side is stupid, right? The Democrats are stupid, and the other candidate is stupid, and all this kind of. But somehow we masterminded all this stuff alone. It none of it makes any sense. And somehow they're stupid, but yet Antifa manages to, to secretly disguise themselves and go out there as these are his people. These are his fans that are out there screaming and yelling, and that is why the people who are talking about it are so feel like they have to say something, is because what they're trying to say is, I've been a lifelong Republican. Why are you doing this to me? I did what I was elected to do, and I'm sorry that you were lied to, but that doesn't change the fact that I did my job. And that is consistent across the board for all these people who were involved in the situation, whether it was in Arizona, whether it was in Georgia, whether it was in the White House, whoever it was that speaks, they're all obviously disconcerted by what happened, and hearing them talk about it is interesting. As far as the documentary, separating myself from how I feel about politics and how I view a documentary, I don't think this really does anything interesting. Like, we've had so many other political films. Was it 4 Hours at the Capitol? Was nominated for, I think, documentary short not that long ago, and there have been other things that are like this. And while I get the vision here, I also, at the same time, if somebody was like, "Oh, I directed Stopping the Steal," I'd be like, "You didn't direct Stopping the Steal. You assembled Stopping the Steal." Like, let's just be real honest about what you did here. Like, there's no directing. I felt a lot better about giving The Insurrectionist Next Door a higher grade, because actually Alexandra Pelosi had to leave her house and go find people and interview them where they were. Like, she went to them and had conversations with people who had threatened to kill her mother. So, which was interesting to have that kind of level of conversation. But here, it's a talking head documentary. Like, how hard is that to assemble? And all you had to do was book the right people. And basically, as a filmmaker, it's like you send out the invites, you say, this is what I want to do. And if you don't get the people, then you don't make the film because the film doesn't work. Like if Bill Barr says no, this film doesn't work. If it was Ben Roethlisberger, is that his name, from Georgia? If he says no, the film doesn't work. So it hinges on whether or not these people say yes. And because they said yes, and they offered their opinion, but I still think that there could have been more people who could have said yes. Because the problem with this is, unless you have like the full, if you feel like you're leapfrogging any of it, if you feel like that this is a 10-step process, right? And you have people to talk about step 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, people are going to be like, well, what about the other steps? You know? I kind of feel like that there are a couple people missing, and I don't know. I want to like it, so I watched it, but and I do like it to some extent, but at the same time, as a film, which is what I'm here to do, is to talk about this as a movie critic. It's okay. HBO's made stronger documentaries before. This one, they're banking on the fact that enough people will be like, yeah, it's election time and this is perfectly timed and we need to watch this. And at the same time, I'm fully aware of this is the perfect time and this is why this is being shown to us. So audio description wise, I wasn't crazy about it. Like I said, I wasn't always sure who was talking, and I felt like her voice was recorded really low. And then occasionally I could tell when they went back and edited her voice because it like came in louder. Like it was weird. I felt like they did 2 passes on this and it's not balanced correctly. There was like one time where she said something and it was exponentially louder than any audio description she had throughout the rest of the film. It wasn't even balanced. So I'm usually pretty okay with .360 stuff, but this didn't do it for me. I don't know. I maybe would have amped her up a little bit in terms of audio description, but I understand that, especially with this, you want flatness. So I'm not gonna say anything about the quality of the voice, but I just felt like it was a little bit too quiet for this film. Anyway, and yeah, I didn't always know who was talking, which is a thing about talking head documentaries, is that I feel like we could do a better job of. I think sometimes you say somebody's name and you're expected to know, to immediately, my brain and the problem is everybody talks like at the beginning, right? So we get thoughts from everybody and they'll say this person's name, this person's name, this person's name, this person's name. I'm supposed to remember all of those voices. So then later on, I'm like, I think it could have been Stephanie, it could have been Kaylee, it could have been, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Who knows? Because if you don't have an immediately distinctive voice, telling me their name one time is not always going to help. Sometimes I was able to figure out who it was based on what it was they were talking about, but sometimes it was just like a little comment. And I was like, I don't know who said that. So, I mean, it's one of the people, but which one? Anyway, so I think people who follow my channel enough are probably like, oh, he's just going to give this film an A and be like, it's best documentary of the year. Surprisingly, no, I'm not doing that. I appreciate the attempt, and I think the gathering of the information, I think the cohesive line is visible here in terms of what story they're trying to put together through the use of these Republicans. I mean, like, I get why this film exists and what they did here. I just don't think that this is a strong, like, directorial effort. I think this is a fairly simple film to have put put together and relies heavily on who you got. So thank Bill Barr because that man offers a lot of context. I never thought I'd say that, but he's a smart guy that puts everything sort of into the right context while also feeling like that you would never agree with him on anything else. Uh, like the whole time he was talking, I was like, I don't think I agree with you on anything. I have a feeling that if we sat down and like laid everything out, I don't know that we would agree. I feel like I'd be like, the sky is blue, and you'd be like, no, it's red. So, yeah, it's a very, I'm intrigued. I'm still intrigued by this, but better documentaries have come out this year. So I'm going to give Stopping the Steal a B. If you are on Max and you're looking for better documentaries, I really like The Truth versus Alex Jones, and I liked The Road to April 19th, An American Bombing. I thought that was really interesting. So I think they've made some strong documentaries this year at HBO. I think this one is just well timed. And the right people said yes. So, yeah, we'll see what happens in the comment section. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.